For some of you, this might also be interesting because this is Singapore, so we're going to have a few images of Singapore now. Because as soon as I arrived in Singapore, I looked out the window of the flat that I moved into and started sketching pictures of what was around me as well. And what was around me, luckily, was some greenery as well. So this is one of the palm trees outside the window. So although on the one side of me I've got Quartz Furniture Superstore, on the other side I've got some palm trees and other sort of nature, which is really good. And I've enjoyed that feature of it. I also started thinking about people again, possibly because I was away from my normal circle. And I think that one of the reasons that I paint people is they're like guardian deities or protector figures. I think that when you paint people, it gives you an idea that people are real and part of life. So it's drawing as well. I got really into sketching and drawing people when I came to Singapore and really enjoyed that. So as well as meeting new people outside, I sort of looked again at people inside and how I could see them. Sometimes they don't look very friendly, I must admit. This is Doctor Who, I believe. I'm not particularly good at always catching the likeness of people as well, so you won't actually be able to recognize many of these people. But even so, I think, as we talked about, they're expressive. So Singapore has been a great time for me as well because in terms of art, my wife wasn't able to be with me here a lot of the time. So a lot of the time I was just on my own in my flat, and so I spent a lot of time painting, which has been really good. And writing academically, which has also probably been really good. These are people out of Filmfare magazine, Indian film stars, because I like drawing all sorts of different characters. In fact, although we won't get a picture here, one of the major motivations for drawing pictures of people came out a while back now. In about 2001, my father had died. This does kind of sound a bit like art therapy, and I started doing lots and lots of pictures of people. So I think that people are a really good thing to paint because it reminds us about how we relate to people. This is Alyssa Bernal, an American pop singer. That was a really good moment. For some reason, the likeness in that case did come. Don't know how it looks on there. That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, there's another one. We'd just been to Tioman, and we were looking at, I was there with all these people, and we were in the water, we were on the beach, and I drew this picture when I got back. This is my wife, Christine, drawn or painted from a photograph which was in Hamilton in Victoria. It's a funny issue painting pictures of people who you're very close to, because the first thing I did after I painted that picture, I thought was quite a good one. Yes, you see me? Because when you know people, you go, "Whoa, what's that going on there?" I quite like that one. It kind of reminds me of being on the island of Tioman and sitting in a restaurant by the bay. This reminds me of a particularly different sort of Singapore. It's a house on Seletar Air Base, which was shortly to be demolished to make way for the new access to the business development, but was really beautiful, and I knew somebody who was living there at the time. This is from last year. We went on a trip to Europe, and this is looking out a hotel room in Siena. So each morning for about a week I was able to get up and paint a picture looking out the window. And again, every day was slightly different. You say it's the same view, but it's not. The light, the clouds, everything changes moment by moment. This is also in Siena, looking at the streets of Siena. And Siena, if you've never been there, this is a terrible comparison, but it's like Benares, but of Europe. So if you've never been to either place, it's completely useless. But anyway, never mind. It's a fascinating place. It's a medieval city that's alive and flourishing. This is a drawing of Benares, and I'll show you some more things like this. Last year I bought a graphics tablet and started experimenting with reworking old art and other stuff that I had. And really got into that because I've decided that's a very important thing. That nowadays there's a lot of problem with obsolescence in technology. So I mentioned that some of these pictures are scanned from sketchbooks bought in Afghanistan. We can't allow mediums to stay the same. We have to keep changing, I've decided. This is a painting I did of the view outside my flat, which probably I just randomly dabbed away at over several months. Whereas this was done in 20 minutes while waiting to go into the cinema in the Cathay Cineplex. And somehow manages to catch a little bit of the madness of the Marina Bay Sands development, or whatever it's called. A building upside down. This is also a really good example of a random thing, because I actually did this during a long, boring staff meeting at NUS. This was doodles. just doodled onto the notes of the meeting. So it's like Eisenstein when you're there. You've got this whole kind of futuristic technological landscape outside the window. So we're in there producing the white heat of the intellectual revolution at the same time as container goods are traveling around the world and stopping here. This is Club Street. Many of you might know this building. I don't know how it is, but in fact it doesn't look anything like that. It's much more neat and clean and smart nowadays. But by the time I painted it, it looked probably much more run down and like it used to before it was done up. This is Upper Dixon Road near to Madras New Woodlands. And there you go. That's the end of that part of the show. Very good. We got one more bit, which we don't need to go back. It's fine.
No, we're good.
Okay, but now it's locked. Oh, that's very exciting. Can I ask you again my one question, which I didn't get time to get an answer? What have you just been looking at? Any light. That's all you've looked at. You've looked just at light. And all that I ever do is make marks on pieces of paper. And yet somehow those marks become light when we see them, and then they become meaning. So that those few random marks become me, my wife, Alyssa Bernal, a place in India, a place in Afghanistan. It's a most extraordinary thing. This is Benares in February this year. So I keep sketching, and one of the things about it is, I was on a meditation retreat, so I'm sitting and drawing a picture of us sitting around and having a discussion during the retreat. And actually it doesn't look anything as good as that in the photographs either, which I have, which is done at the same time. So sometimes drawings are better than the actuality. And also this view out the back of the hotel in Delhi looked much more humdrum in all the photographs I have of it than it looks like in this sketch, which I thought was nice. And then this is a picture of the river in Benares. So even though this is this year, it goes back to the 1977 part of my life when I first go to India as well. So I think that's another good thing about pictures, is that they tell you something about particular... But there you go, it's the same thing, just marks on paper giving you light.